What is up, you guys? Pete DiCarlo here, and if you haven't already seen, I put a video out on Monday called Stocks versus Real Estate. If you're watching this in the future, just go back. It should be a couple of videos behind, and it's Stocks versus Real Estate, which one I believe is the better investment and why. That video was like 25 minutes long, and I dropped a lot of bombs in that video, but a lot of you guys are asking me questions about how I bought my first property, how was I explaining in that video how I instantly made $50,000 in equity, and I briefly talked about how you could purchase your first property entirely for free. And so a lot of you guys want to know how I did it, and that's what this video is going to be about. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment down below if there's any types of videos that you guys want me to do, and let's get started. So the first property that I purchased was for $150,000. So the property that I purchased was a duplex. So for those of you who might not be from the United States or know what a duplex is, it is essentially a house that has two levels. That is a terrible house, guys. I'm really bad at drawing, but it's essentially a house that has two levels, and basically they're like two little apartments. So the place that I bought was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom place at the bottom, and then a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom place at the top. The top was, somewhere around 700 square feet, and the bottom was about 800 square feet. So really just a little bit bigger. Now, when I purchased this property, there was the owner's son living up top on this property, and he was living there for free. And then there was someone down the bottom who was living here for like $1,000 a month. But at the time, I was like, I want to move in downstairs because you can get what's called an owner occupancy. Yeah, dude, I don't know how to spell, guys. Occupancy loan. And so basically when you do an owner occupied loan, what's going to end up happening is the bank is going to give you a way better rate, and the bank is going to feel a lot better about loaning you money because you're living there. The other thing too is that if you stay within that property for 2 years and you live there primarily, what's going to end up happening is any profits that you make on that property after 2 years, you will not be taxed on up to $200,000, which is phenomenal. So for instance, if you double your money within those 2 years, under what circumstances, and you made $200,000, you don't have to pay taxes on it, which that is massive. So if it's your first property or an owner occupancy loan, those are the best. And what I really did at the time was house hack. So when I purchased this property, one of the biggest things that was a selling point for me is I thought that number one, it was listed under value. So one of the things that you have to understand is that you're never going to negotiate somebody down to like these insane levels that you see on TV. So for instance, let's say that somebody is selling a house for like, $300,000. You're not going to go in there and offer them $150,000. That's just not going to happen. Like that, you're not going to get that deep of a discount no matter how motivated a seller is. And so one of the first things that I would always say for you guys to do is to just try to find a place that is appropriately valued, maybe under price. So for this property that I found, they were listing it for like 160, 170. So I'm just going to put like 160K. And I felt that the property easily was worth $175,000 if I just put a small amount of cosmetic work into it. And so when I came to the deal, I initially offered like 140, 130. He didn't end up doing it, and we ended up settling on $150,000. So worst comes to worst, I felt that if I bought this house for 150 grand, I put about 5 grand worth of work into it, it would easily be worth 175K minimum. Now, anytime that I would purchase a property, I never look at how much money I'm going to make in equity or how much the property is going to be worth. One of the biggest things I look for is cash flow and how quickly I can start making money on this property. Because like I said, sometimes the housing market just goes straight up, and sometimes you just buy at the worst time and it goes straight down. So anytime that I look at a property, I never think about appreciation. Even though I try to like negotiate that into like why I'm purchasing the property, I never say to myself like, oh, this property is going to go up over the next 10 years. If the numbers don't make sense when we talk about rents, then they just don't ever make sense. So at the time I was like, all right, listen, I know that I can rent this top place out for minimum $900 a month, minimum $900 a month. And the person who just bought this from me, I believe they actually put it like at least 5-10 grand. They made it really, really nice, but they're actually renting it out right now, I think for 1100, even 1200 a month. So they're making good money on that. But I thought to myself, minimally, I can rent the top out for 900, and minimally, I can rent the bottom out for, let's say $1,000 a month minimum. And I realized that at the time we were going to get about a 4.6% interest rate, which is very good back in 2016, 2017. So a 4.6 interest rate. And then I put 20% down. So at the time I put 20% down, I had about $35,000 in that deal, but with just closing costs and everything. So 35 grand in the deal, that's what I had to put down. I could have put 3% down if I wanted, but I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to have 20% down. So at this time, we had a good rate, and our mortgage was only, I just messed that up, but our mortgage was only $1,075 a month. So $1,075 a month. And just for using this video as an example, because I'm terrible at math, even though it's basically my job, let's just say $1,000 a month mortgage. So the mortgage was $1,000 a month. And I said to myself, easily, always do worst case scenarios when you're talking about numbers. Easily, I can rent the top for 900, and I can easily rent the bottom for 1,000, no problem. Which means that as long as one of these units is rented, I'm paying that mortgage every single month, easily. And obviously, if not, between the two, if I have both of them filled, then I'm still making a $900 a month profit, which is very, 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 very good. And that's what you need to look for, is what's my worst case scenario. So when I went into the deal, I put 35 grand down, like I said, and then I was making 900 a month. So 900 times 12 means I'm making 10,000 a year. That means that in 3.5 years, I get my money back. No, like worst case scenario, the property doesn't even have to go up in value. I can straight up just get my money back in 3.5 years, just by how much money I'm making off of the rents. And that's why these numbers are crucially important, because let's say that you overpay for the property and you get a really crappy loan and a really crappy mortgage rate. And let's say that instead you have a rate of, my credit was really good and my partner's credit was really good. But let's say you have a rate of 7.2%, and you can still only rent the top up for 900 and you can rent the bottom for 1,000. You're not going to be able to really rent them much higher than you think. Unless you're in an insane area when rents are very high. But let's say that instead of 1075, my mortgage was $1,600 a month. I would have never done this deal, because I'm only making $1,900 a month, which means I'm only going to be making a profit of $300, best case scenario. And if I can only rent one of these units out, well, guess what? I still have to cough up $600 on my own end. So that number didn't make sense to me. And that's really why I'm not buying any properties right now, because it's just not worth it at this point in time, in my opinion. Unless you can get a really, really good price, which we're going to talk about the price right now. So how did I get this deal under market? And this is what I want to go through. This video is going to be a little longer, and I was going to break it up into 5 or 6 different things, which I might end up doing when I explain how to buy properties for free. But long story short, you have to find a motivated seller. And you guys always probably hear this, and it sounds like a trigger word in my opinion, which is why I don't like saying it, but they have to be motivated, and they have to really, it's pretty bad, but you have to look for minor neglect. And you don't want to have major neglect, because major neglect is plumbing issues. They haven't fixed the roof. They don't care about the building in general. But when I say minor neglect, I'm talking about maybe they just, don't cut the grass. So maybe the grass is long. Maybe, it just needs some paint. Maybe they need some new appliances. Maybe the appliances are really old. Maybe it needs new floors, but flooring is not that expensive, so it might need new floors. That type of stuff that you could go in, spend 4 or 5 grand, and then you could get all of that fixed, and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That is really what you're looking for. You're not looking for major neglect, the freaking roof is falling down. And that's why you need to always have a really educated and good inspector, because an inspector is going to save your life when it comes to the pains that you're going to deal with as far as rehabbing or fixing a property. But you have to find neglect and you have to find minor neglect. And then that means usually that the person is going to be a motivated seller. So the way that I found this property and the way that I find a lot of the properties that I look for is I just drive. I drive around in an area that I want to purchase. Normally, what I'm looking for is a C class neighborhood. And you guys probably have never heard this before. If you have, then you know. But a C class neighborhood is, decent school district. So I really want to say like a B for your school, and then it's going to be like middle to low income. So this basically means like you have a very blue collar neighborhood. You don't want to be buying properties in the ghetto. Personally, I don't ever do Section 8 deals. I don't ever want to deal with them. It's not that there's no money to be made in them. It's just that I don't want to deal with that. So like an A class neighborhood, for instance, would be like the richest of the rich. A B class neighborhood would be, families make around $120,000 a year, and C class is the best because you can charge good, rates for rents. Because there's only so much you can rent. You can't rent like a 4,000 square foot house in a super nice neighborhood in your area for $7,000 a month. People just don't do that. But you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,000 a month. So that's what I look for. And what I would do is I drive around and I find properties that look like they were a little bit neglected. The grass was high. Maybe there's a bunch of mail in the mailbox. Um, there's different signs that I can explain in another video of what I look for with minor neglect. And then I would see number one, if it's already on the market. If it was on the market, I'd contact my agent and then we would go in and try to, check out the property. And if it wasn't listed, then I would cold call them and be like, hey, I'm interested in buying your property. I was wondering what's the deal. Are you interested in selling? Blah, 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 which I can teach you guys how to do that as well. So the property that I found, like I said, was a duplex. And unfortunately, the person who owned its parents died. I believe that the individual who owned the property was like 65, 70, and he lived in New Jersey. And from Philadelphia, New Jersey is about an hour and a half drive, around the beach. I think he lived like on the beach. So he was not near the property. And his parents grew up there. They lived there. It was their initial house, and they turned it into a duplex. And like I said before, I believe his son was living downstairs, and then he had people living below. They were renting, but I didn't want them to live there because I wanted to move in downstairs so I can get that owner occupancy loan. And so at the time it needed a lot of work. And like I said, it was 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and then 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And then I knew that I could easily rent 900 and then 1,000. So at the time it needed a lot of work. Like the whole upstairs had to be basically redone. The downstairs had to be redone, but it wasn't that crazy. I did spend about $4,000 fixing that place up down there, but I knew that it was worth more than what he was offering. And like I said, if he was offering to sell it for 180 and it was worth like 175, 180, like I'm not even going to try to come in at 130 or 140 because nobody moves that much. You're just going to disrespect the person and then your agent's not going to want to work with you. So he was asking 160. I got him down to $150,000. Then after that, like I said, I'm in it for about 35,000 with closing costs. And then I had to put about $7,000 into the property in general. So at this point, I'm in for $42,000 in total. And like we said before, at this point, I'd be making about $10,000 a year just because of the mortgage and everything. But what ended up happening was after we fixed up the property, home values continued to go up. Now, this is where you can go and basically turn this entire situation into like dominoes, because once you buy one property, to get a second property is very, very easy. To get a third property is very, very easy. To get a fourth property is very, very easy because of this. So in this instance, like I said, we bought it for 150,000, and right now at this point it's worth about $175,000. And this is literally like 2 months after we purchased this property. The property, I think right now, is actually like worth about $230,000, $240,000, which is just crazy. Comps are nuts right now, and I don't think that they're going to hold here, but I can do another video on the real estate market and where I see that going. But instantly, between these two, I have about $25,000 in equity. Now, what I can do is called a HELOC, or a home equity line of home equity line of credit. So HELOC, home equity line of credit. Why is that sideways? I don't know why I'm so bad at writing on this draw pad. But a HELOC, so a home equity line of credit, which essentially means you go back to the bank, even though I just took out a loan, and I can say, hey, look, I had an appraiser come out. The appraiser says it's worth $175,000, and I have $150,000 in it. I have $25,000 that I want to take out, that I want to use to go buy another property, maybe that you want to use to go fix up the property that you have. And what the bank's going to do is basically give you a checking account with that 25 grand that you can spend it on whatever you want. You can go to the casino, you can blow it. I don't recommend you do that, but it is a superpower if you use it the right way. It is terrible if you use it the wrong way, because if you buy dumb stuff with it that are not income producing assets, it can ruin everything that you have. And so when you go to the bank, like let's just say that I'm living down here and then I rent this top out. If I rent this out to, let's say just like some guy who's living here or some girl that's living here, and then they give me the old lease. What I can do is I can take this lease. It's a terrible lease, but I can take this lease and bring it to the bank, and then my debt to income ratio is basically even, because remember, my mortgage is only 1,000 a month and I'm getting 900 a month with me living down there for free, basically. What you can do is something along the lines like this, where you live in the bottom, you rent the top is paying the mortgage. Now your debt to income ratio on the property is only 100 a month and you live for free. And now you're not a liability to the bank. And so you can take that home equity line of credit and you can take that $25,000, and you guessed it, what you should probably be doing, which like I said before, is you can go ahead and spend it on, whatever dumb stuff you want to do. But really what you should be doing is going out and finding another property in which you can take that money and you can do exactly what we just talked about. So let's say that you find, in this instance, a single family home. I try to not buy single family homes that much, but the property I have right now that I just moved into for myself is a single family home. But let's say that you find a really, really nice single family home. You don't plan on living in it, but it's just a really nice house. And let's say that this house, this time, you get it for like a really, really good deal, because unfortunately, there was a divorce, somebody had to move, something happened where they had a motivated seller and the person just wanted to get out. And let's say for this property, you ended up getting this house for $125,000, and the house right now is worth about $150,000. Well, what you could take is that 25 grand that you got from your home equity line of credit, and you can go ahead and put down, I would say, about $15,000 on that property. You could save $10,000 and then basically fix this property up. And then let's say that your mortgage on this property is somewhere like $1,100 a month. You could rent this house easily for about $1,500, $1,600, and now you can do the whole thing over and over and over and over, because you found a deal, you found, a motivated seller who's willing to sell this property to you for $25,000 less, and you are easily paying your mortgage with that property. And you can do this over and over and over and over again. And that's really one of the best ways to get started in real estate. But the best thing that I would do is just a home equity line. First thing I would do is, if you're somebody who doesn't own a house or you want to get into, real estate, the easiest way is a duplex. Duplex properties right now are extremely expensive now, way more than they were like 4 or 5 years ago, just because of how crazy the real estate market is right now, but because nobody builds duplexes. They just don't build them anymore. So you either have to find a duplex that was built, 40, 50 years ago, or someone who turned a house into a duplex, or maybe you can turn a house into a duplex. But a duplex is the best because you can live, especially if you're like a young single male or single woman and you don't have children yet and you can afford to live in a smaller area. I'm not talking financially afford. I'm talking about like you don't have to have a ton of room because you're just working on your craft. You're becoming, savvy with your money. You can find a duplex and you can just live downstairs and then you can rent the top out. And if you have a good rate and a good mortgage, you can do that. And then you can live completely for free. There are a lot of people who do that. There are a lot of people I know who rent rooms. So maybe they'll buy a 3-bedroom house. They'll rent 2 of their rooms out and they'll pay the mortgage entirely. But this was a lot in this video. I hope that this video helped. It might be a little intimidating to some of you guys who have never watched any of this type of content from me talking about real estate. And a lot of people say to themselves, like, it can't be that easy. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. Yeah, they should do it. But the issue is not a lot of people can. Not a lot of people want to take risks. Not a lot of people want to put their credit, their time, their energy, their money on the line. Not a lot of people want to learn how to do this thing. So if you watch this until the end, 20 minutes later, and I said this on the video I made Monday, congrats to you. Pat yourself on the back, right? Don't take a step back and take the pedal off of the gas, or take your foot off the gas as far as like you trying to become better with your investing career and everything like that. But you have to really realize that not a lot of people take this stuff seriously. They get into it, they get into real estate, they get into the stock market, they want to become business owners, they want to become mommypreneurs or fucking whatever it is they want to become, and then they don't want to put the work into it because they realize the price that they have to pay in order to do all of this correctly, and they're like, dude, I don't want to do that. So I applaud you guys for watching until the end and whatnot. Let me know what type of videos you guys want me to make. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.